Of course, after that, which sac passe basically means what's up in Creole, after that, you guys would say not brûlé, which literally means we're burning, but we don't really use that term. So it's kind of like the response saying everything's all good. So moving forward, that's what we're going to use. So I'm not sure if this is going to be webisode 1 or webisode 2, but we are going to talk about my timed intercourse and IUI journey. If you hear a little clicking, that is my fur baby, Tank, who might want to make his appearance. I don't know. And if the video stops, it's probably because my husband is on his way home from work, and I definitely want to greet him and say hello. And maybe he might pop in. I don't know. He might be too tired from work to pop in. I have my handy dandy notebook, my Blue's Clues notebook, to kind of keep me on track. There's a lot of information to cover, so I want to make sure I get that down packed. So, thank you for my subscribers so far, and thank you so much for allowing me to reach over 100 views on YouTube for my first video. I really, really hope to gain more subscribers. Make sure you guys like and comment and email or contact me in any way. Remember, I do have Instagram and Facebook, and it's still under the name Confessions of an Aspiring Mom. So I left off on my last video, which is my introduction to the world about my infertility journey. I left off that we stopped on our final IUI. So I'm going to go ahead and trace it back to August 2016 when we decided to move forward with IUI. I went to my OBGYN, which is in Orlando, Florida, Women's Center for Excellence. I had a great experience with both my doctors there. No issues, and I do plan on keeping them as OBGYNs. I really felt like they knew what they were doing, and they did listen to my concerns. So we started off with our first IUI. Actually, I take it back. No, we did start off with our first IUI, August 2016. We used letrozole. I don't know if you can see my little fur baby right here. Probably not. He's right next to me. His name is Tank. We started off with our first IUI August 2016, and we used letrozole, which is the oral pill ovulation medication. I use that cycle days 5 through 9. And then usually around between cycle day 12 and 14 is when I would go back and do an ultrasound, check the size of my follicles. And from there, I would use Ovidra, which is a trigger shot, and that's supposed to release the egg. So right before we actually did that IUI, we did have hubby do another semen analysis, and it came back that he was perfect. So I ended up just being the problem. The first, like I mentioned before in the first video, the initial sperm analysis came back as low motility and low morphology, just slightly under. And basically with diet changes and vitamins, he was perfectly fine. So we were happy that we had one hurdle that we didn't have to worry about. It was just getting me to ovulate because I was so irregular due to my PCOS. So we did that first IUI. Unfortunately, it was not successful. And then from there, we went on to our second IUI. I take that back. We actually went to timed intercourse. I wanted to do another IUI, but hubby just wasn't ready to go back to back. We really had our hopes up thinking that it was going to work on the first try. We just did. And by the time we were ready to, if you hear him, it's probably because my husband's car is here. He's backing in, and this little guy here is a handful when he hears his pops coming home. He gets really uneasy. So I do apologize for this leaking. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video because it's going to be a while until he gets settled in and calmed down. And we're back. Sorry about the pause. Had to get hubby all settled in. Back to before, I just realized let me backtrack. I didn't even explain what an insemination is. Insemination outside of timed intercourse is the next step when trying to do fertility treatments. Basically with ovulation, inducing medications like Femara aka letrozole, which is a generic brand, or what's popularly known as Clomid. And then from there, the more aggressive drugs like injectables, like Minipur. What else? There is Gonal F. There is Follistim. Those injections, so it depends on how aggressive that you need to be to get your follicles to stem. And then from there, they monitor you via ultrasound, probably about 1 to 3 ultrasounds within the first 2-week period to see if your follicles, your potential eggs, are growing to the right size. In order for them to go ahead and trigger you with an HCG injection, with an injection that you would do, which is usually around day 12, in order for them to do that, again, you would be monitored. And then from there, they try to time it with your husband's sperm. He'll take his sample either at home, collect it at home, or you can go to the office. And about day 14 is usually when they have you come in. They take your husband's sperm, wash it in a special type of way, put it in through a catheter, put the catheter past your cervix directly into your uterus. And by the time you've had that injection, which is about 36 hours before, the sperm and the egg should meet. So that's the less aggressive way to try to conceive. So I apologize for not putting that first. That should have been the first thing. And then timed intercourse is pretty much the same thing, except you are just not doing the IUI portion. Basically, you're getting monitored. Some doctors monitor you via ultrasound, some don't. My personal opinion, I feel like if you are getting any sort of ovulation medication, even if it's just oral like Clomid or letrozole, but especially if you're getting injectables, which are very expensive, you should be monitored to make sure your body is reacting the way it should. And basically, once your ultrasounds confirm that, okay, your follicles are the right size, which is usually somewhere at least 16 millimeters and up. I think 18 is really like the best number, but some doctors will let you go at 16 millimeters. From there, they will have you basically do intercourse, pretty much starting from cycle day 10 or even 12, and then every 2 days after that. So that's timed intercourse and IUI in a nutshell. Sorry about not putting that in the first part of the video. So moving back to what we were discussing, our first IUI attempt was not successful. And that was August 2016, going into September. It kind of was like at the end of the month. From there, our second cycle ended up being in October, end of September, early October, by the time my next period came. And we ended up having a death in the family. So IUI was definitely out of the question. We didn't know what our expenses would be at the time. And it was just not the mood for IUI, and it definitely wasn't the mood for timed intercourse. It just, that whole month was just, it was planning a funeral. My birthday was coming up, our anniversary, our dating anniversary, other family members, but it was just a lot going on, and timed intercourse just wasn't gonna work. We did decide when my next period did come that we were gonna go for a second IUI. So that was October 30th, and that would have been our third cycle, and we ended up conceiving that cycle. We got our BFP and we were excited. I think it was November 13th. If you guys are looking at a calendar and November 13th is a Sunday, then that's when I took our test. I remember that Sunday morning doing that test. I walked to the bathroom, peed, laid it down, walked back to the bedroom, just kind of curled up in like the fetal position, like, God, please let this work. If this is for me, this is for me. If this is not for me, this is not for me. Your will be done. And I kept telling myself that over and over and over again. And hubby was in the bathroom and he's like, I don't know what I'm looking at, or something to that effect. And I'm just like, what is he talking about? Like, it's either 2 lines or 1. Like, this is what I'm saying to myself. And I'm just like, let me just go see, like, let me just go look at this negative. Like, this is what I told myself. And I walked over there and I saw those 2 lines and I freaked out and just started jumping and crying, and we were just so happy and overjoyed. And pretty much immediately started to tell our immediate close friends and close family members. We went to my parents' house, got them a bib that said Grandma and Grandpa, and I had my mom open the bag, and it was just a great moment. And then pretty much throughout, the next 2 to 3 weeks, we were just kind of just telling family and friends. And by Thanksgiving, there was an Instagram post, and we were just overjoyed. By Thanksgiving, I was about 5.5 weeks, and everything was going very, very well. I didn't have an appointment until 9 weeks, which was basically December 21st. Went to that appointment. Me and hubby drove separately. We get there, and I knew exactly what to look for. I had watched so many YouTube videos, and then unfortunately, when I noticed that the ultrasound tech was super, super quiet, and I'll get in detail about the whole miscarriage situation, D&C, and grief in one whole video in itself. I'm just kind of giving you guys the overall what happened in that situation. But I knew what to look for, and she was really quiet, and then she started basically going over my whole uterus except focusing on what needed to be focused on. And I knew something was wrong. And basically I closed my eyes, and as soon as I opened them, it was like she was on cue. The ultrasound tech was on cue. The tissue was right in front of my face, and I basically lost it. And it was difficult. And again, I'll do a full video about, dealing with miscarriage and trying to decide, how you want to miscarry and dealing with the grief. But it was hard. It was the holiday time. Christmas was coming up. Lots of events. New Year's was coming up, and it was just a lot going on. I did have a D&C in January, and then from there, we went right back into another IUI. My period did not want to come on its own, so I did have to induce it with Prevera, which is what I had been doing since the beginning. And then from there, we did an IUI late February. That was unsuccessful, and we were to do that would have been our third IUI and our fourth cycle. And then we were supposed to do another IUI in March. We were ready to go. Unfortunately, me and hubby were just not on the same page that day, and that was canceled and turned into a timed intercourse. And on that one, I really thought we got pregnant. I had 2 follicles. One had potentially already released when I did my ultrasound, but when I did my day 12 ultrasound, one had possibly had released. And 9 days later, I thought I had implantation bleeding, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is implantation. We're just a few more days and I'll be pregnant. And then by the end of the day, I was full on flow, and called my doctor's office, and they basically said, that's period. And it definitely was a period. It came 9 days after my IUI, and I could not believe it. I was just absolutely devastated. So I did cycles 1 through 5, 2-time intercourse, and 3 IUIs with my OBGYN. By then, I just felt like, you know what, I was switching jobs. I didn't have any infertility benefits before, but I didn't know if my new job was going to have infertility benefits. I didn't know what my schedule would be. I didn't know how stressed I would be. I did come from a stressful medical office. And so I figured we would just take a break for the summer.